Hi! Remember when I said I would be taking my time and making more thought out content for YouTube videos? Well, turns out this video is coming a little quicker than expected because recently I got the opportunity to go to HeroesCon for the first time in 4 years. A lot of you have probably never heard of HeroesCon before, which is to be expected. There are literally so many conventions going on at any given time that it's not feasible to keep track of them all. It's likely that some of you don't even know what a convention is, which is also completely fine. At the most basic definition of the word, a convention is an event where a gathering of individuals come together to discuss a certain topic or participate in activities related to a shared interest. They can cover a wide range of topics, such as toys, politics, horror, anime, religion, art, comics, and so many more. If you can think of it, there's probably an event for it. Some even tailor their events to specific franchises like Pokemon, Littlest Pet Shop, or My Little Pony, all working to various degrees. HeroesCon in Charlotte, North Carolina falls into the category of a comic book convention, as the name kinda suggests. It's been running on a large scale since 1982, but started with its humble beginnings in 1977. Shelton Drum, who was originally in his early 20s at the time, hosted his very first comic show at a local mall, a one-day event called Charlotte MiniCon. 3 years into hosting this event, he'd go on to open his own comic book store called Heroes Aren't Hard to Find, the name of which being driven from a Fleetwood Mac song of the same name. HeroesCon would quickly outgrow its mini status and began moving on to bigger venues, eventually finding its permanent residence in 1995 at the Charlotte Convention Center. As for guests, they've had some of the biggest names in comics. Guests like Butch Geist, George Perez, Marv Wolfman, Mike Zeck, and so many more. Stan Lee was even a guest to the convention in 1984, 2012, and 2015. I was actually at the 2015 HeroesCon that year. We didn't have the money to meet the man himself, but I did get to meet his wife, and she was a total sweetheart. For 42 years, they've only gained more success, their 40th anniversary bringing in over 50,000 people, making a new record for the amount of attendees at the con. HeroesCon is arguably one of the biggest and longest running conventions in the South. It's an event I adore, and to be able to go back for the first time in years is very exciting. Something I wanted to do for the longest time when it came to going to conventions was cosplay. I often find it's looked down upon as a form of dress-up or something for kids, but that's simply not true. While a minority of people who do participate in cosplay are kids, most cosplayers you'll see online are adults that use their adult money to make some of the best cosplays I've ever seen. I have dabbled in cosplay over the years, my main outlet of which being through Musical.ly originally. Seeing creators bring characters from some of my favorite media to life was magical in a way and lit a flame of creativity inside me that I didn't know I had as a kid. Because of this, I made a ton of scuffed closet cosplays that I put together in an effort to portray some of my favorite characters and my own OCs. I made props out of empty cardboard boxes, printer paper, and duct tape. I used watercolors as makeup, which you shouldn't do, by the way. I only did it because I had no access to makeup, and I knew how to use paints and markers. Despite wanting to cosplay, I never took it that seriously, mainly because it costs a lot of money that I don't have, and there were not many characters I thought I could pull off well, if at all. But throw the idea of me going to a convention in my face, and suddenly I have the bright idea to pull a cosplay together in a little less than a week. Not my dumbest idea ever, but it's up there. But who would I even go as? I'm fond of too many kinds of media, which means there are too many characters to choose from. Well, I quite honestly made a list of every cosplay I ever wanted to do just so I could go through the process of elimination to figure out which one would be the most realistic in a 1-week time frame. Out of all of my options, I ended up settling on either Daredevil or Spider-Man. Daredevil was an easy first choice. I've had a recent obsession of sorts with the IP in all of its forms, more specifically the TV show and the comics. So based off this, my first thought was, oh, it'd be pretty cool to dress up as Daredevil. I wonder how much a Daredevil suit actually costs. Yeah, no, a full suit was out of the question, so realistically I would go with his daytime look. The red glasses, the cane, the suit, the whole shebang. But on the other hand, Spider-Man was also an option. More specifically, the homemade suit. It's one of the most iconic yet simple looks for Spider-Man, and I also just think it looks really cool. I already had most of the homemade suit due to using it for a Halloween costume in 2019, and it would be a cheaper option. But like most things in my life, I was very indecisive on what I wanted to do, so I left it up to a random draw, more specifically, nameofwheels.com. If you saw the thumbnail, it's kind of obvious which of the two was chosen. Besides that, it's the most cost-effective and easiest outfit to achieve in under a week. The cosplay itself wasn't in bad shape, it just needed a few touch-ups is all. I also wanted to create a new set of web shooters that closely resemble the ones in this photo I was referencing. Keep in mind, I haven't made props in years, so this was an experience, to say the least. My first attempt failed miserably because I was too ambitious when it came to making them, and I completely forgot I had to wear these over my jacket. The first draft was too small, so it had to be thrown to the side. My second run, however, was much more successful because I actually accounted for the sleeves this time. I glued it together and stuck some extra cardboard bits onto it to make it look like these little silver bits in the reference image. After about a day of piecing stuff together, I was finally ready to spray paint it black. It took about 3 to 4 coats to cover the whole thing, and during that downtime while I was letting it dry, I decided to make a little spider accessory that could ride on my shoulder during the convention that looked like the radioactive spider that bites Peter Parker, specifically the one from Into the Spider-Verse. Is it accurate to the cosplay that I'm wearing to the convention? No. But do I care also? Surprisingly no. I didn't record much of the process of making the spider due to the fact that it was already hard enough figuring out how to make the spider in the first place, and I didn't want to have to record the process of my failures as well. So here it is in its final stages, and honestly, for not messing with clay for like a really long time, I'm not mad at how it turned out. I'm pretty sure it's honestly just the paint job that saved it in the end, but it looks pretty good, at least in my opinion. The cuffs, on the other hand, were a challenge, to say the least. I tried painting it as originally shown in the photo, but I didn't like these little square pieces I glued on, so I ended up tearing them off and using construction paper to make the little red divider bits instead. A good bit of tape, hot glue burns, and painting later, they don't look half bad considering I haven't made something like this before. As for the rest of the outfit, I reused bits from the original costume like these biking gloves and these red Converse, and it's done. For not cosplaying in a long time, I gotta say, it doesn't look half bad, especially for pulling it all together in a week. I ended up finishing it very late into the night right before the convention, which didn't really help considering I had to leave early in order to get there on time. Before I knew it, we were in Charlotte, North Carolina. We also passed by a Hooters, and my brother told me to get footage of it, so here was that. Yeah, look, Hooters building, it was closed. It was closed, and yeah, that's Hooters. A couple miles down the road after that, we stood in front of the Charlotte Convention Center, the current home of Heroes Con. I've never filmed in public before because I personally find it really embarrassing. So in an effort to get some footage of the event, I enlisted the help of my brother to get some for me. He said that in order for me to be allowed to use his footage, I had to give him a shout out. So, this is his channel. Look at that, wow. Pricing for the event has risen over the years, but that's to be expected due to the event's popularity and other major world events that we cannot speak of on this platform. Admission for kids under the age of 16 were free, while anyone else over 16 needed to pay $35 on Fridays and Saturdays, or $30 on Sunday. The con itself was held in the main room, having booths that were separated into 21 different aisles and rows. As for people at the convention, it was packed, to say the least. You had to walk carefully in order not to bump into people, which I ended up doing a lot. A little over 5 times to be exact. It was like a sea of bodies every time I looked out into the crowd, which shot my anxiety through the roof. Those inconveniences are no fault of the con though, and despite them, I had a great time. I didn't know whether it was okay to film people at the con, whether it be their cosplays or their booths for the convention, but some of the standouts that I did get footage of was this Lego booth, this booth from Pixel Empire, this display from Unknown Comics, and this booth from Casey Adams, which I just thought was really funny. As I've discussed plenty of times before, I love physical media, but it has a habit of being really expensive. And with an abundance of vendors, there's obviously going to be things I'd want to buy. So I set myself to a limit of only spending $100, primarily looking for Daredevil comics and Doctor Who action figures, the latter of which was easier said than done. Maybe I wasn't looking in the right places, or I was just missing things due to the amount of people, but I was coming up empty-handed when it came to finding Doctor Who figures. I did find a handful, but there were some that I already had, and most were too expensive. I did find a Doctor Who comic featuring Tom Baker's 4th Doctor, which was neat to stumble upon, but that was pretty much it in the realm of Doctor Who media at the con. The story itself was originally titled City of the Damned in the UK, but was changed to the City of the Cursed when it came to the US. The story itself follows the 4th Doctor arriving on the planet Zom. The planet is ruled by a council known as the Brain Trust, whose members have expanded brains instead of heads. The council has outlawed emotion, seeing it as the root of all crime. There is a resistance against the Zom Council, and it's up to the Doctor to help them escape. As for Daredevil comics, I found an abundance of those, most of which I ended up buying. We have issue 177, 187, 191, 227, 230, 226, and finally the 1993 retelling of Daredevil's origin story. My favorite part about reading through these older comics is the advertisements, oddly enough. It's a nice glimpse into what was being promoted to audiences back then, like a little time capsule of what used to be. These, plus the Doctor Who comic, came to a total of $73, which is a lot, but I don't mind spending that much, especially when it's something I'm interested in. And you know, that would have been it if a little book booth didn't catch my eye on the way out of the con. The book that caught my eye was The Art of Overwatch Volume 2, which, if you know me in real life, it's no secret I love this game, no matter how many times Blizzard continues to disappoint me. I have sunk hundreds of hours into this game on console, and have recently picked it up on PC. These are my stats if anyone was interested. Yes, I'm in Junkrat, no, I am not ashamed as much as I should be, and yes, I am too afraid to go back into competitive. I never considered that Overwatch would even have an art book, but now that I knew there were not one, but 2 art books out there, my impulses took over and I bought the 2nd volume. It's massive and super heavy, like I could knock someone out with this. It also has so much information, too much for me to summarize. I'll probably save it for a different video, but it's basically a collection of the character designs for the last 8 heroes that were added into Overwatch 1. It was only $30, and considering the original retail price was $50, I technically saved money. However, that final purchase did cause me to go over my $100 limit, ending at a total of $103. But that's in the past, and so is Heroes Con. But don't worry, if you're interested in this event, Heroes Con will be returning in 2025 through June 20th to 22nd at Charlotte Convention Center. To keep up with this event, consider following their Instagram or checking out their official website. I would definitely recommend Heroes Con to anyone who hasn't been to a convention before as their first convention, and I look forward to its return next year. Thank you for watching, and that is all I have to say for now. Have a beautiful rest of your day wherever you are, stay safe, and bye-bye for now.